this is Arthur Nix with EWKS, and today I want to discuss billable rate estimates in HeavyBid. What are billable rate estimates? Well, these are rates that are established with the customer for equipment and labor. These rates are usually established yearly for all projects or just one project. An example of that would be a contract that you have with a client, and as part of the contract for extra work they might have established billing rates for labor, pieces of labor, and pieces of equipment. Non-labor, non-equipment costs are billed to the customer usually with some kind of set markup. So this would be for materials that you have to buy, and then there's an agreement, maybe 5% for marking up materials or subs. Example of this, what we're talking about, these billable rates, concrete labor would be $100 per hour, and a front-end loader would be $120 an hour. So this rate would include your profit, your overhead, and any of these indirect costs. Everything is built into this rate. So rates include company profit and overhead. And these rates could also be used for change orders. Billable rates are usually never used to bid public work. Hard bids. DOT contractors, for example, never use billable rates. Never heard of one using it as a basis of estimating. And billable rates are for the most part used for change order and companies that do service work for their clients. So typical example would be a company that currently does service work with billable rates, and then they want to start getting into more of the public works sector. This will be essential for them to be able to see what their actual profit margin is with their billable rates as they make the transition to using real costs in their estimates. So there's always that transition period where they're comfortable with their billing rates, but they know they have to get to the actual rates in terms of their estimates. And so during that transition period, what I'm going to show today is how you can take a billable rate estimate and then determine the actual cost. So the solution there of determining the actual profit margin for the estimate is, of course, using HeavyBid. And the workflow to calculate margin is we're going to create the estimate using the billable rates, or the billing rates for equipment and labor. And then we're going to establish the bid item prices, and then just freeze those prices. Okay, so those prices will be fixed. And then we're going to copy the estimate, and this new estimate will establish true cost and our true profit margin. In this new estimate, we're going to import in the actual labor and equipment cost databases. So no longer will we be working with the billable rates. We're going to swap them out for the actual labor and equipment cost. So the actual margin then would be the bid total, which we've already established in the previous estimate, and we copy it so that bid total will remain current, minus the current cost, which would be real cost, divided by bid total times 100 will give us the actual margin percent. So there's several ways I can approach this. I could start with the composite rates and then develop the total bid, or come the other direction and start with the actual costs and then compare it to the composite rates. But I think most contractors who use composite rates and are looking to transition to real rates are probably going to start with a composite rate. So that's how I approach this with this video. I have in the setup, I have the composite all-in rate for labor. You notice there's no fringe, no taxes. For equipment, I have the same thing. I just have an all-in rate. If I come to tree view with the indirects, now that's a little bit of a gray area. you have to ask yourself, okay, does the composite rates cover my indirect costs? So it kind of depends on what type of quote this is. Now, if it doesn't cover it, then what I would do is I would change the non-ads to be direct and actually quote, for example, the permits. In this case, I'm going to leave them off in the composite and then turn them on in the actual costs. Okay, that's my approach here. So now when I go to the summary, I say, well, what does my client allow? I'm going to say for this example, 10% on material, 5% on sub. And then you just have to ignore this over here on the right because it's really meaningless right now, the 2%, because that's actual profit, but that doesn't mean anything. That's going to become meaningful when I actually have my cost. All right, so at this point in time, what I want to do is go set my bid prices and freeze them. So I've already set my bid prices here. I've already did a rounding routine under options and then rounding routine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to freeze everything. I'm pretty close to my balanced bid. Again, it kind of depends on the client. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to freeze everything here. One way of doing it, you also can go to options, and those will be my bid prices right there. Let me just make sure that I have everything frozen. Yep. All right, so that's the first step. And obviously, you would be creating this from a master estimate with composite labor and equipment rates. All right, now step 2, I'm going to make a new estimate and then import in my real cost. So I can have the two estimates to, jump back and forth and compare. So I'm going to go up to File, New, Copy Current Estimate. All right, I'm just going to call it 221010 costs. And this would be my cost estimate. All right, and I'm going to finish. So right now I just have duplicate estimate. All right, I leave these assumptions alone right here. And what I do, first problem, I'm going to go ahead and make these additive. So I'm going to go to Setup, Bid Items. And I'm going to go ahead and get these ends and change these to I's. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and import in my real rates. So I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, Merge, Setups. Now this is a very useful function that if you have not used it, you need to learn how to use it. I believe there's some videos either on my YouTube channel or the Academy. Very useful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to overwrite my duplicates, labor and equipment. All right, so remember, copy, merge, setup, so it's pretty easy. I can also replace estimate files. What I have is I have a separate master that has only labor and equipment, real rates. So I come here to my source, click on my masters, and I look down here and I see my 2021 actual equipment and labor rates. And remember, this has to correspond one-to-one with the codes. They have to be exact. The codes have to be exact match. I put OK, I put OK, and then I put OK again, and there it goes. Merge is complete, and I update my estimate. All right, so if I come into the setup, you see here I got my real rates, got my taxes and fringe. If I come to the setup equipment, I have real rates in here. All right, so, and I made additive my indirects. I go to my summary. And what I do now, since I've already got my price set, I don't really need to even have this calculate. I'm just going to put 0 here. But I do want to have, under add-ons, I want to have my overhead. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in as a cost, okay, because I'm assuming that this is real cost in here. The bond is in there just like the bond was in the other estimate. And I go ahead and run this. So now, based on my prices, okay, based on my composite rates, I'm going to make a net profit here, an actual margin here of 29.25%. All right, and I think I've covered everything. I have my indirects, I have my add-ons, and maybe I said, well, you know what? That seems a little low anyway. I'm going to make this to be 10% overhead. So you can just see kind of the change here. Okay, so now I'm looking at around 26% of actual profit margin. All right, so what is my margin? It is the 526. If I come to my bid pricing, I'll have my 526 right here, my actual markup, divided by my actual bid, because that's my actual bid price right there, the $2,034,000, and that gives me that 25.88% right there. So that's how I can know what my profit margin is on a composite rate project. So just to kind of overview again, I have two estimates. One is the composite rate, and that's represented right here, the estimate with composite rates. And then I copy that to this estimate, the one I'm in, and then I would bring in my real costs and my real costs for equipment and labor. And optional is to make additive your indirects. And then I would come to summary, and probably if I'm running an overhead, I probably would put an overhead on there, make that a number. And anything else that I wanted to do in here, I'd leave these zero though, but everything else would be, based on the actual price. I'm not worried about this balance price right here. It's meaningless because I've already set the bid price. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope this helps estimators that are transitioning from composite rate type estimates. They're the type of company that uses this, service type companies, and now they want to get into more of the hard bidding, where you just can't use those rates. You're not going to be competitive. You got to know what you're making, but you need that transition period. So I think this will help you make that transition. So this is Arthur Nix with EWKS again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you also watch some of the other videos that I have, and be sure to connect up with my blog, where I try to blog at least once a week on various subjects of estimating and contracting. Thank you.